This year, we're going to do something a little different. Instead of scenes defined by a set of characters or a specific archetype, we're going to be looking at something different. Something that almost all scenes have in common. Music. This is one musical scene.
Damn it, Nando. You just had to come up with another trend. This will be fun. Towards the end of October, I posted a video called One Villainous Scene, which was also in response to a trend Nando V Movies started. And since most of you seem to like it, I figured I'll give this one a shot too. Don't worry, next time I will come up with my own topics for videos. But in all seriousness, there is a scene I wish to discuss that left a big impact on me. Let's talk about Sleeping Beauty. So a little fact about me. The animated version of Sleeping Beauty from 1959 is one of, if not my favourite, animated film from Disney. Now I'll admit right away that 90% of it is purely because of nostalgia. I know it has its flaws, big ones in fact, but I'm not here to review the movie itself. I could always plan that for a future video, please let me know if you'd be interested, but I digress. At the very least, I'll do a quick summary of the film for those very few who don't know the story. At the christening of Princess Aurora, the evil Maleficent decides to curse her for not being invited to the ceremony because #relatable, claiming that before her 16th birthday, she will die from pricking her finger on a spinning wheel. In order to protect Aurora until her 16th birthday, 3 fairies hide her away and raise her as their own. When she's older, Aurora falls in love with Prince Philip after 5 seconds, then she's told she is a princess and brought home, where she ends up dead because of poor supervision. Then you can figure out the rest. The prince gets captured and rescued, defeats Maleficent, then kisses Aurora when she's asleep because consent, what's that? Then there's a happily ever after with us learning the important lesson of it being perfectly okay to fall in love with the first person you meet. Thanks, Disney. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the scene I want to analyse, Maleficent's evil spell. It takes place towards the end of the second act. Aurora is brought to her parents' castle, now dressed as a princess, and put into her room, awaiting the sunset for what would mean the end of her curse. Aurora cries and the fairies decide to leave her alone, but this ends up being a terrible mistake. Maleficent casts a hypnotic spell on the princess, making her follow her like a mindless zombie. The fairies pursue her but are unable to stop Aurora from pricking her finger, fulfilling the terrible curse set upon her, and Maleficent leaves them, cackling triumphantly. Now why did I choose this scene, specifically for the music? Admittedly, I could have picked any scene from the movie because not only is the music just incredible, but it's also integral to the film because it wouldn't be a musical without it. As for the scene itself, there are a few reasons why I chose it, 3 to be exact. Firstly, this piece is Maleficent's leitmotif. Now I certainly would never claim to be an expert on music, there are plenty of other channels that can explain it better than I ever could, so I'll just stick to what I do know. And a leitmotif, in the simplest of terms, is a melody that is intentionally associated with a specific element in a movie, whether it's a character, location, or even event. For example, if I were to play this, what comes to our mind is the theme we associate with the shark from Jaws. And this you would know this is the Shire's theme from The Lord of the Rings. I think you'll get the idea. To learn more about leitmotifs, I highly recommend Sideways' video on how Pixar uses them. It's really fascinating. Now, back to Maleficent. For a melody that wasn't intended for her when it was originally composed, and I'm not referring to the movie, I'm talking about the original Tchaikovsky score, which I'll get to shortly, you hear it at least once during most of her scenes. And it's worth noting that George Bruns, the film's composer, played around with the tone of the music to convey different levels of what she's like. All of them sounding evil. The second reason that doesn't require too much of an explanation by comparison is the music is timed so perfectly to the animation, or vice versa. I'm not 100% sure which order they did it, but I'm leaning more towards the music being composed first, which is, again, something I'll address in a moment. Either way, in this particular case, it leads to a perfectly paced scene that somehow manages to be both slow and fast, each corresponds with the right characters. For Aurora, it's drawn out and hypnotic. The fairies, it's fast and tense. I also like how it crescendos twice, almost tricking your brain into thinking it's over, but it keeps going. Then it ends at the right spot. It's masterfully done, making this, in my opinion, one of the most haunting scenes in any Disney animated movie. And finally, the big one. What to me leaves the biggest impact in this scene is how Bruns managed to take a piece of original music and twist it around so that we associate it with something completely different than what was originally intended. Let me explain. For instance, you know how the classic Disney animated films are so beloved that for most people, they think about them whenever they think about the original fairy tales? Well, Sleeping Beauty does that, but with the soundtrack. You see, the movie was based on the story of the same name written by Charles Perrault in the late 1700s. But the soundtrack was based on the Tchaikovsky ballet of the same name. And by based on, I mean Bruns quite literally took huge chunks of the ballet's music and used it in the film, but frequently changed the context. To better understand this, I'll briefly explain the ballet as it does have its major differences compared to the film. The ballet is divided into 4 parts. The prologue, which focuses on the christening of Aurora, Act 1, which focuses on Aurora's 16th birthday up to her pricking her finger on the spinning wheel, Act 2, which takes place 100 years later when the prince finds her and breaks the spell. Yeah, that's a big part of both the ballet and the original story that the film doesn't add. The 100 years later, I mean. And finally, Act 3, which is the wedding. So imagine that instead of ending the movie here, it goes on for another half an hour at least. So, to show the differences in context between the music from the ballet and the film, here are several examples of each of the respected scores. Now, of course, you want to hear about the scene. Well, are you ready? The original scene from the ballet that features this creepy and haunting music is called Puss in Boots. What? Don't believe me? Well, feast your eyes and ears on this. Yes, this is real. Your senses are not deceiving you. I bet your childhood minds are boggled right now. And just to make it clear, I didn't edit or alter the clip's audio in any way. To think that this iconic yet unsettling music was originally used for a cute little dance that's meant to entertain the royal court during the wedding in the final act. But you know what? That's the power of the film, and this scene in particular. Taking the music from the ballet and inserting it into the film while changing its initial context makes it strangely more iconic. And on top of that, add the breathtaking colours and smooth animation, and you have a truly creepy and suspenseful scene that always sends shivers down my spine every time I see it, even though I know what's going to happen. It's been fun looking back at this scene because, in all honesty, What I take from it more is how much it left an impact on me throughout the different parts of my life. As a child, I was drawn in, almost like Aurora, hypnotized to the screen primarily by the music, as if Maleficent herself was casting a spell. Now, as an adult, I'm more fascinated by the choices made when Disney created this scene. Believe me, I never would have known about the Sleeping Beauty ballet when I was younger, but despite that, I still associate the music with this particular scene no matter what. I'd be curious to know what you all think, be sure to let me know. I highly recommend you guys check out both the movie and the ballet if you haven't yet, so you can draw your own conclusions. As for me, the movie will always hold a special place in my heart for the beauty and wonder that an animated film can bring. But this scene will continue to haunt me in the best way possible, luring me in like a siren's song, for in my mind, it will always be an incredible musical scene.